Today we'll start the second module of our personal finance course, which is called Understanding Money. The first section of this module is on security. So, financial frauds and scams. So there are lots of these going about and they're becoming more and more common, particularly online. So I'd like you to pause the video and then go to the website that is given as a link in your Teams assignment. It's also on the screen. If you go through this quiz, I think there's 9 or 10 questions in it. It'll give you a good idea of some of the things that people will do to try and defraud you, and some of the things that you can do to avoid it. So pause the video for a few seconds now. Okay, hopefully some of these terms that we're going to have a look at will have came up during the quiz, or you'll already be aware of them. So, types of fraud and scams. Straightforward one, steal your card, and then they can use your card to pay for things, either using the contactless or using it online or over the phone to give all the details. Card not present is when people are using it online or over the phone. They pretend to be you and just give your details. Identity theft speaks for itself. Well, there's lots of different ways that can be done. Phishing. So that's normally through an email that will ask you to click on a link, which you'll then have to put in your details. So the most famous one is the Nigerian prince who needs you to deposit some money so that you can then get millions from him. If these things are too good to be true, they usually are. Skimming is when they put a device on a card reader so that when you put your card in and put your PIN number in, they'll read all your details. Phishing is a similar idea to phishing, but if somebody gives you a phone call and does the same sort of thing to try and get your details. So you should be able to describe what all of these things mean. There's more detailed answers on page 26, task 1, activity 1 of your booklet. So pause the video for a few seconds and have a read through that. Make sure that you're familiar with them. Okay, so when is it appropriate to do these things? So this is ways that you can protect yourself. So when is it appropriate to shred things? So that would be when you get things like bank statements sent to you. Anything that's got all your personal details on it. So your name, address, any account numbers, all of these kind of things. You don't want somebody to be able to find them in landfill and then use that to impersonate you. Making sure you have secure passwords. Pretty common sense for the amount of online things you have now. So you'll have a login details for just about every website that you go to. Anywhere you've ever bought something, you'll have a password and a login detail for it. Ideally, they'll all be different and they will have lots of steps to try and make sure your passwords are secure. Covering your hand, that's when you're putting your PIN in. How many times are you standing at the front of the queue and there's people all around you, less so in the COVID era, but there'll always still be the person at the cashier. Make sure they can't see your PIN. Cover your hand before you type it in. And then deleting messages, so that's anything that you are sent through email or text that'll have any detail on it that you wouldn't want someone else to be able to get hold of. So if you take some notes on those in page 2 of your booklet, that's the second page of that activity. Okay, so there are lots of different ways that people can try and get your details. So what precautions can you take to try and make sure that you're going to be okay? The passwords. That's the biggest thing. What do you do to make sure your passwords are safe as possible? So RBS has got quite some good advice on it. First thing, don't leave a record. Don't write it down. Don't share it with someone else. It's your password. It needs to be private. Change it regularly. Easy to do. And make sure that it's much less likely to have made its way onto the internet or the dark web as a thing that's for sale. People actually steal passwords and sell them on. Ideally, your password will be easy for you to remember, but impossible for others to guess. So it's something memorable to you. Mix it up. So most of the websites will ask you to have a mixture of letters and numbers and special characters in there. So there's no point in just putting your name and then 1, 2, 3 at the end of it. Don't use your PIN number as a password. You don't, in the same way you wouldn't want to reuse one password for lots of different websites. Disassociation. So I've already said don't use your own name. Don't use your family names or birthdays. They're easy for everybody to guess. Usually you can get them off Facebook. So make sure you don't use those. So one good piece of advice, use letters from a phrase or song lyric. For example, the nursery rhyme, the grand old Duke of York, he had 10,000 men. Using the first letter of each word there gives you the phrase TGODOYHH 10TM with a mixture of capitals and lowercase letters. That's going to be really hard for someone else to guess, but quite easy for you to remember. So I wouldn't use that one because I've just put that on the internet. So, PIN code. So the PIN code is what you're going to have to put in every time you use your card, whenever it's not contactless. So it's your personal identification number. So it's not a PIN number. Everybody calls it a PIN number. That would be a personal identification number, and that doesn't make any sense. It's a PIN code or a PIN. Who would you share the PIN with? No one. You're the only person. Your bank will never ask you for it. So if they phone you up and ask you for your PIN number, that's a bad sign. That means that somebody's probably got the rest of the card details. And you should contact your bank and get that card stopped and a new one sent out. So when you're going to use it, whenever you're paying via chip and PIN or when you're at the cash machine, either taking out cash or using some of the other services that are available at modern ATMs. Okay, now if you go back to your workbook and complete task 1 activity 2, that'll ask you to go to a website, a bank's website or some sort of credit card agency's website, and ask you to find out what precautions they recommend. I've obviously went through the RBS one, so don't do that. Pick a different bank. Okay, thank you.